my little, I have a little stream starts now thing. Hold up. Wait, it's like a stream starts in a second. Oh man. This? Yeah. It's kind of neat because I can turn it on and I'm just still behind it. I think if you're more professional, you probably have it muted and stuff. But yeah, we're going to get started. Some news, some jokes, some fun. Live from a studio apartment, this is Misinformation. Oh, anything in the news recently? I don't... Well, he finally did it. Yeah. My boy. I have been told you. That's what Trump says. Trump, of course, killed the Iran supreme leader on Saturday morning. Yeah. And this comes just a few weeks after he captured Venezuela's president. Yeah. If he can get one more dictator, he gets a free regime change at Starbucks. Yeah. That Kim Jong-un is a venti. Well, Trump claimed that 49 Iranian leaders were killed in the strike. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, if you're counting, that's nearly 3,500 virgins, or one Harry Sisson. Yeah. He's got the strength of 3,500 virgins. My finger slipped on the button that time. That's what she didn't say to him. Because there's never been a she. All right, Trump says the strike targeted Iranian leaders while they met over breakfast. Oof, it's a rough one. Yeah, pictured footage of the strike. Yeah, that's the Iranian Grand Slam right there. It's an expensive breakfast. I feel like you should still tip, to be honest. What are you, Jews? As, speaking of, in a rare win for both Israel and anti-Semites, Israel fired an actual space laser, a Jewish space laser, at Hezbollah rockets. Yeah. Of course, I kid. That wasn't actually a space laser. Yeah, actually, in order to show people that it wasn't actually firing from space, Israel turned off the weather. Yeah, they have a little machine. Turns out that part is true. They can do that. I think that's all the jokes. I thought there was more. I thought there was more, and then it was the end. All right, we'll get to some news. Okay. Let me pull up the Twitter. I'm going to pull up the chat, too. See how many of y'all's is in here. Boom, boom, boom. My virgins jokes. There we go. Okay, let's see if I can get the chat.
Oh my God, we're in a war with Iran. Refresh your feed.
I don't know if it's streaming. Oh, maybe we're not on TikTok. That's a bummer. Oh, we are. Sweet. This is like the one. This is the one place I can get random viewers. Oh, there's one. Rich Rahir. What's up, Rich Rahir? You're the only viewer, so I'm going to talk directly to you going forward. I will only address you. There's we get that stuff. Okay. I feel like I'm off center here. All right, so biggest things in the news, we got Iran, right? Obviously. People are split on this. So you have conservatives who are, no, this is bad, it's still bad, even though it seems to be going okay so far. They're kind of, hesitant based on previous U.S. foreign interventions, right? Which makes sense. That was the whole point of kind of a lot of Trump's base, America First, was to stay out of foreign wars that we have nothing to do with, and stop, giving away American lives for these battles that don't really involve us, right? And then you have people that are sort of down for it, that are like, yeah, I mean, we should strike first, we should exert America's might, etc., etc. Where do you guys fall on it? Rich? Any opinion? Let me pull up the YouTube chat, too. Let's get this. I don't know how that's going to work. Let me put it somewhere over here. Yeah, kind of. I guess I'll just jump into it. Here's my thing. Here's a reframe for you on the situation. So if you are looking at the invasion of, well, not the invasion, but the attack on Iran, and you're comparing that against the last 20 years of U.S. foreign policy with foreign interventionism and how that's gone, you're looking at it, you're going, oh, well, Afghanistan didn't turn out well. Iraq didn't turn out well. We were there forever. That's not what you're comparing it against. You're comparing the attack on Iran against Trump's track record. All right? So you're not betting against the U.S. track record of foreign interventionism. You're betting against Trump. Right? I feel like, and this is sort of what I said, that is going to fall immediately. I'm bumping into it. I changed around the studio a little bit so it's a little bit tighter. Anyways, it's sort of what I said right when this news broke on like Saturday morning, which sucked, by the way. I had to jump up out of bed and be like, okay, I got to say something. And, it's sort of really early. You're just finding out about it. I don't know how to feel about it. It sounds kind of intimidating. Actually, Trump's out there on camera saying he's, it's going to be a bigger operation than Maduro, and some American lives are expected to be lost. And so I honestly didn't know how to feel about it. But the conclusion that I came to was that I elected Trump to handle these types of situations. And based on how he has performed so far with Maduro, snatching up a dictator out of his bed, bringing him back to America with zero American casualties, based on how he handled the Iran nuclear strikes, I have to extend him a line of credit on whatever his next decision is. If he thinks that we have to go into Iran and he is handling it, I'm going to give him that line of credit until I'm proven otherwise, until I see otherwise, right? Something to change my mind. I didn't elect Trump to not be a fighter. That's the other thing. It's sort of, even when you look at the past 20 years of U.S. interventionism, it's sort of this sort of sad history of going into these foreign countries with what is allegedly the biggest military superpower in the history of the world, right? Although we've never really seen it up until now. We've just seen, pictures of Afghanis falling off of planes as we're leaving because we couldn't finish the job, or we're seeing, the U.S. military get seemingly bogged down in Iraq and tribal warfare for nearly a decade, right? And so I think that part of that, it was a little embarrassing, and I think other countries looked at us and sort of assumed that is partially, I think, why you see the Russian expansion into Ukraine, right? And China eyeing Taiwan, because they believed for a long time that the U.S. was sort of a paper tiger, right? But I think one of the important things that Trump has done is he is, I would say reestablished, but he really established for the first time in a very real way true U.S. dominance, where you can't see the Maduro raid and go, that's not insanely dominant, right? That's something a madman would do. First of all, we're going to literally capture a dictator alive while he's in office, just bring him out of the presidential palace and bring him up on charges in our country. That's insane, right? Going into Iran and taking out nearly 50 of their top leadership in one strike is insane, right? So, and then what you've seen from that is, if you were concerned about going into Iran in the first place, one of your biggest concerns would have been, well, they're backed by China and they're backed by Russia, and what happens if one of those guys gets involved, and maybe now we're in World War III. Well, I don't think either of them two want to mess with us anymore. First of all, I think they saw enough during the Maduro raid. But what you've seen is now this shift where China and Russia have been exposed as paper tigers. They spent all this time backing Iran, and when it came down to it, they were nowhere to be found. We just took out the leadership. Now, there's a lot of time. This is very early on, so anything can happen, I suppose. But so far, what you're seeing is this sort of seismic shift in, America truly establishing its dominance and Trump helping it to find its dominance, right? By being a very proactive, forward-facing military that's not afraid to preemptively strike. They'll argue that it's not really preemptive and they had intelligence saying we were going to get struck. Should this happen? Should X happen? Y would happen? But, it is a proactive military position that is sort of eliminating threats and eliminating enemies if there is not much downside and if the upside's really high, right? So that's kind of where I'm at with it right now. But I do think you can't compare it against the history of U.S. foreign intervention. You have to compare it against Trump's track record, because he, to me, is the big defining factor right now. Okay, so what we're going to jump into... I'm just loading the chat again. It's a slow night. Nobody's here for my live stream. Only 2 people. I can't get a chat from YouTube, by the way. Or maybe I can and just everybody's quiet. I don't know. But here's some stuff from the we'll look at some general news from the this was, I thought, a good, we'll do like a little for and against the war in Iran type deal. So this was one of the better tweets I saw sort of for it. Who's this guy, Overton News? Never heard of him. Let's read the whole tweet. They say he's setting us, they're talking about Trump, I imagine now. He's setting us up for world dominance for generations to come. In just over a minute, I don't even know what this is. Who's Ungar Sargon? Oh, here, he's talking about the paper tigers. So he says, to me, the thing that really... Let's ignore the fact I have no idea who Ungar Sargon is. I missed that part of the tweet. To me, the thing that really stands out most importantly is that nobody has come to the Islamic regime's defense. Not Russia, not China. We thought we were facing this great axis of evil uniting to create a multipolar universe in which the United States was no longer a superpower. And that turned out to be completely false. The larger picture is how the president is protecting the United States and positioning us for global dominance. He is picking off our adversaries one by one, isolating them from each other and isolating them from their oil, which is a pretty persuasive argument to me. Remember that 20% of China's oil came from either Venezuela or Iran. I mean, how are the Chinese supposed to take Taiwan now minus 20% of their oil supply? He says, I'm calling it the locked-in presidency. It's such a bro way to say it. But yeah, he says every action he takes has not 1, but 2, 3, or 4 strategic advantages to strengthen the United States, to make us stronger, safer, and more prosperous. This is sort of what I was saying with the paper tigers thing, you know. It's sort of flipping the script and not only affecting Iran, it's affecting our enemies and their ability to position themselves against us. When I say against us, I mean, even when you look at Russia's invasion of Ukraine, right? a large part of the motivation for that has to be that in their calculus, Russia is saying the U.S. isn't going to do anything about this. We can go in and we can get in there and not a damn thing will happen to us, right? And I'm not saying that they would be afraid the U.S. would strike them or something, but certainly with Trump, that's a wild card that you don't really want to mess with. It's a little bit different under Biden, right? You can get away with stuff. Here's another, let me see if I got it here. Good argument for the invasion of Iran. Will Chamberlain, I like this guy. He has a lot of good stuff to say. Underrated account. I know he's semi-famous and everything, but he should have way more followers than this, I feel like. Did I just unfollow him? Maybe that's what happens to him. Anyways, he says, I want to focus in on one specific Iranian action that alone justifies Trump's decision to strike. He says, in response to the initial U.S.-Israel barrage, Iran launched ballistic missiles at United Kingdom military bases in Cyprus. The UK didn't even permit use of their bases for the strikes. They elected a leftist who ran against wars in Iran. And Iran flung ballistic missiles at them anyway, 1,000 miles away. That's a crazy thing to do. First, it demonstrates that Iran wasn't run by rational people. Sorry, mutually assured destruction relies on rationality. Trump would be irresponsible to let them have nukes. Second, 1,000 miles is a hell of a long way. If Iran can accurately fire missiles that far, it wouldn't be long until they could fire 5,000 miles and hit Miami or Washington. Which is very true. I hadn't heard this bit about them firing those missiles 1,000 miles away. I did know that they fired a barrage of missiles in what I'm describing as an act of belligerence. That's what it seems like to me. It seems like their whole plan was basically, it was almost like a kill switch, right? Like the Epstein kill switch. If I die by suicide, release the files. They're like, if we get shot by the U.S. and Khamenei's dead, just start shooting everyone around us. Like, we got like 20 different countries picked out. Just shoot one missile at all of them. We got a total of 20 missiles. We got to spread this out over the globe. They just hit everything, you know? But I didn't realize that they were developing these missiles that could fly a long range like that. So he brings up 2 points there, that they're belligerent, that they didn't have a coherent plan, but they attacked kind of everyone, which leads you to believe probably Trump was right about it. And then they're able to shoot missiles a pretty good distance away. That soon will fall, I'm telling you. It's going to expose my couch behind it and a body. I'm going to have to flee to Mexico after this live stream if that backdrop falls. Here's another argument for, I think it's a simple way to say it, but I do think there's a lot of truth to this. Walter Kurt, he says, I don't do the gaslighting thing. I think he's responding maybe to Matt Walsh. We'll talk about Matt Walsh in a sec. Matt Walsh was kind of going off on the opposite end. He's very against the current intervention in Iran. He says in any case, he's talking about the gaslighting, that conservatives are flip-flopping and basically acting like they always supported invading Iran when they weren't, right? So this person says, I don't do the gaslighting thing. In my opinion, is much more straightforward. Trump was trying to negotiate. They lied and kept stalling, kept doing the exercises with our enemies, regularly threatening us on international stage. As a result, Trump said, okay, kill that guy. Which sounds like a funny argument, but I actually like it. You know, if you've ever worked with directly with a CEO before, sometimes they make just really weird kind of almost common sense decisions that are so common sense and don't include like a super detailed what's going to happen if X equals Y. They're just like, yeah, this guy's a problem for us. Let's take him out. Like it's high upside, low risk. Let's just do it. And they will make moves like that. And I think it's interesting to have somebody in office who's willing to pull the trigger that way and to just, no more of a calculus needed than, yeah, these guys are a threat to us. It's not like we're talking about Russia or China here where we would lose, it's a world war, we lose millions of men. I mean, of course, every life is important, right? But we could take them out and eliminate this very real threat to us with relatively low casualties, so let's take that shot while we have it, rather than wait for things to get worse, wait for their technology to get better, to where they can actually strike the American people, right? You have Matt Walsh on the other side of the spectrum. We'll pull up his tweet here. He says, I supported the Venezuela operation, and I'm on board with acquiring Greenland because they both pass the only litmus test I care about. Will it be a net benefit to the United States? Venezuela and Greenland are low risk, high reward. Big wins for our people. We gain much and lose little or nothing. Easy call as far as I'm concerned. I'm not actually an isolationist. I'm just an America first conservative in the strictest sense of the term. Does the benefit for America outweigh the cost? It must, or it's a bad policy. This is one of my absolute core political principles and always has been. With this Iran thing, he says, I don't see how the math works in our favor. Or at least it seems highly unlikely that it will work out in our favor. And so I'm against it. If that puts me at odds with the administration, with much of the conservative commentariat, so be it. I have to stick with what I believe. Which I understand what he's saying. He's bringing up good points too, by the way, in what he's saying. But to me, the math is really simple. And it works out. The math is minus one enemy. And I think that's how Trump was looking at it, you know. Not to say we don't have a ton of enemies and we're going to do that to everyone, but this was a very vocal enemy that wished death to America, apparently tried to assassinate Trump or wanted to assassinate him. So you got a personal beef going on, right? And then they're constantly trying to develop a nuclear enrichment program, right? And extend the range on their hypersonic missiles. And so I think he looked at that and said, okay, we have a shot now to take him out. It is relatively low risk. In the course of history, this is probably the lowest risk it would ever be. Let's take that shot. You know, you're never going to know exactly 100% that that was the right decision. You're not going to be able to trace everything with a model, how it's all going to work out, right? It's always a choice between the devil you know and the devil you don't know. And, you know, we do know this devil, so Trump decided to take him out. I happen to like the move. Is it right or wrong? I don't know. And it's tough to ever know in those situations. But I do like that he's proactive. This was a great pick of Trump that dropped today. There's so much news, by the way, on this stuff. It's almost hard to know where to start. I've seen like hundreds of the best memes I've ever seen. Twitter was like the busiest it's been in 2 days. This is one of the hardest picks of Trump. That's a great one. I did a video, man, I wish I had it here. I didn't load it up. But it's a video of Trump as John Wick, not fighting, but it's the scene where they're calling him Baba Yaga, the boogeyman. And I put in all these funny pics of Trump. I wish I had this pic for it. It's pretty cool. This was a story that broke in the middle of all this. The Washington Post and the New York Times did this, both in their obits of the Ayatollah. They both seemed to give fairly, I don't want to say glowing, but biased descriptions of him. So this was how the Washington Post covered the death of a heinous dictator who had just ordered the murder of several thousands of protesters in his own country. With his bushy white beard and easy smile, Ayatollah Khamenei cut a more avuncular figure in public than his perpetually scowling but much more revered mentor, and he was known to be fond of Persian poetry and classic Western novels, especially Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. But like the uncompromising Khamenei, he opposed moderates' efforts to promote political and social reforms domestically and to secure rapprochement with the United States. Are they referencing the murder of the protesters there? Is that how they framed the protest slaughter? He opposed moderates' efforts. That's a fairly positive review. I don't know if I have the New York Times article. Oh, I missed it here. but they described it was something similar where they had a headline about his death, and they were like, hardline leader in Iran who, they didn't really mention any of the. I think we can find it here, actually. Let me pull it up. New York Times. I'm confused as to where the I goes in Khamenei, but I believe that's it. Let's just try this headline. Oops. There we go. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, hardline cleric, who made Iran a regional power, dies at 86. And people were comparing this to, I don't know if they have the headline here, but when Scott Adams died, because the New York Times actually came out and made a statement and said, oh, we don't do obituaries or eulogies. We're a news organization. We cover things fairly and evenly. That's what we said. That's what they said. But people were comparing that with the article they released about Scott Adams when he passed away, which was essentially Scott Adams, Dilbert creator, who poked. Oh, that's the Washington Post. Here's the New York Times. Scott Adams, whose comic strip Dilbert was a sensation until he made racist comments on his podcast, has died at 68. So this is just really interesting to see if you've never seen stuff like this before. How the framing of a news agency's headlines even can completely alter a story, right? This guy's just a downfallen racist, even though he's one of the smartest guys I've ever heard. This guy, hardline cleric, building Iran into a regional power, has slaughtered his own citizens also. Probably much more of a racist than, I believe he has said death to the Jews quite a bit. I don't remember the Dilbert guy saying that ever, but it's okay. So yeah, terrible. This is another just random thing that happened. I was watching a CNN interview. It's like with Anderson Cooper talking to a reporter on the ground. That's me, actually. He's talking to a reporter on the ground, and when they go to cut back to the studio, they use a drone strike transition effect that makes it look like the reporter has been killed. This is a real video.
Directly over our heads from Iran into Iraq.
That is CNN's Clarissa Ward reporting from Erbil, a city in Iraq, located not
into Iraq.
Is watching his colleague be
That is CNN's Clarissa Ward reporting
TV,
from Erbil, a city in Iraq, located not far from the border with Iran, and she joins us from there. Now, what's the latest that you have been seeing in northern Iraq when you're hearing from sources elsewhere in the region?
It's funny. Maybe it wasn't live. I did a little gif of it. There was a great, where is this? This was the letter that was sent to, reportedly sent by Admiral Brad Cooper, the commander of the U.S. Central Command, to American service members across the Middle East on February 28th. This was just prior to the start of the strikes against Iran. Here's the letter. To America's extraordinary sons and daughters deployed around the Middle East. By order of the President, we are embarking on a mission of profound consequence. The time for preparation is over. The time for action has arrived. As we move from deterrence into active combat, I write to tell you how honored I am to serve with you, the most exceptional soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, guardians, and Coast Guardsmen on this earth. Some of you are stationed in the Middle East. Many of you have deployed overseas on short notice. Others have been extended on deployment for this critical mission. You represent the strongest, most lethal warfighting force the world has ever known, which is probably true. You all selflessly serve our great country and make us very proud. Since 1979, the Iranian regime has killed and wounded thousands of Americans, and they continue to threaten Americans and our friends. Today, by your courage and grit, you will change the course of human history. That would get me amped if I were a soldier getting ready to go in. My guidance for you is simple. This is the best part of the letter. Let's see if I can still pull it up. My guidance for you is simple. Be relentlessly lethal. In the heat of conflict, remember who you are. Let your conduct be as professional as your aim is precise. Take care of your teammates. The men and women on your flanks, in front of you, and those at your six are your guardian angels. Be theirs. Steady your resolve. Combat is inherently chaotic. The hours, days, and perhaps weeks ahead will challenge you. There will be noise and confusion. Fall back on your training. It is the best in the world. You are the shield of the free world, and today you are its sharpest sword. That's epic. He says, as the eyes of the world fix upon us, stay safe and Godspeed. That's pretty crazy. Just like a letter from your boss to everybody in the military. I thought that was worth sharing. Pretty remarkable letter. What else we got? What time is it? 12:01. Here were just some funny memes. This was somebody talking about the Ayatollahs. We got breaking. Ayatollah Arafi has been appointed as the acting supreme leader of Iran. And then this person says, Iran told me America keeps bombing their Ayatollahs, so I asked how many Ayatollahs they have, and they said they just go to the mosque and get a new Ayatollah afterwards. So I said it sounds like they're just feeding Ayatollahs to America, and then their leadership started crying. This is a reference to another tweet. I feel like it's about like somebody's pets or something kept dying. So he's just, he's doing the tweet there. Really funny. This was the most insane community note of all time. You got them saying, this was on February 27th. May Allah protect him. It's Khamenei, of course. In the community note, Allah didn't protect him. I almost feel bad sharing this. You shouldn't, you know. But it is a brutal community note. It is kind of stupid, though, when people use these like community notes just to punk people. It's really funny, but I feel like I could use less, to be honest, of the jokey community notes. Okay, this was another great tweet here. It's just breaking. New York financier Jeffrey Epstein has been killed by an Iranian missile in Tel Aviv. Perfect tweet. Pokes fun of the idea that Jeffrey Epstein was alive in Israel. And I like the description of him as New York financier. Looking if we got anything else. I think that might be it for today. Maybe we'll go into some different stuff tomorrow. Yeah, it's fine for me for right now. Yeah, all right, cool. I'm going to get some sleep. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Should be back. And then the rest of this week through Friday. All right, I'll try to get it closer to 9 p.m. if possible. If you're on YouTube, just turn on the notifications so it pops up when my discombobulated ass finally puts the show together and gets ready to go. All right, thanks.